Okay. Hello, my name is Daniel Loughrin. I live in Guelph, Ontario. I'm 32 years old. I run a small business called Upbeat Guitar Studio where I teach kids and basically anybody how to play instruments, mostly guitar, bass, sometimes drums. The space is also used as a live music venue sometimes, like once a month. That's what I'm doing right now. I got a guitar for the first time when it was Christmas and I was in third grade. Um, and I didn't even get the guitar. It was like a rental guitar. So like, there was this like really nice, like Stratocaster guitar under the Christmas tree and it was too big for me. But I really, I just started plucking around on it. And my parents asked me at some point, like, do you want one of these? Like, is this a good idea? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then they bought me this like used, like crappy Strat knockoff thing. And I played that for a while. Um, I had this guitar when I was younger and I played it for a minute and then I stopped playing it. I was just like, I was too young. I couldn't do anything of value on the instrument. And I was just like not driven, like you said, or motivated to practice in any way, shape, or form. But the guitar hung around the house. And I have a brother that's 2 years older than me. And oh, wouldn't you believe it that someone who's 2 years older has 2 years more of like an ability to do anything? Like they can run faster. They're able to form like concrete ideas and like sentences better.
They've got bigger
And
hands.
he's got bigger hands. He could play better guitar than me. And then he started playing in bands like shortly after picking up this little guitar and figuring out some power chords. And I mean, I've said this story so many times in my adult life, but I might as well do it and have it recorded so I never have to say it again. Um, the thing that really helped me take off as a guitar player was I made a point in my head. I was just like, okay, well, Drew's better at me. Drew's my older brother. Drew's better at me at everything. So I'm going to pick this one thing because the guitar was mine. He's playing my guitar. It's my Christmas gift or whatever. So I have to be better at him than one thing, and it's going to be the guitar. So then I started like practicing, and he also really helped me get better at playing the guitar because like I needed to learn how to play drums and bass and guitar to like help him practice his like crust punk band songs in between their weekly band practices. So we'd get to like jam and just like play some stuff. And I was always like this little minion that was on this, like Drew would want me to do this. And I'd be like, okay, I'll try. And he's like, no, it's like this. And then I would try to mimic it. And I don't know. That was like the very like formative experiences of me playing music were like just under the direction of someone who I like, adored. He's my older brother. He's a
Yeah.
cool guy.
It's cool that your career kind of
He's
like
out of
has
spite.
yeah, well it comes from like a civil a
Sibling rivalry.
rivalry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And like that extends through high school as well. Like I was known to my brother's circle of friends as Drew's brother, right? And then when I started playing in my own band, they're like, "Oh shit, Drew's brother! Whoa!" And then I started playing
That's
in
when
some
you became
bands.
Dan.
Yeah. So it was just like this weird thing where, and I guess that happened with my music taste as well. Like, because Drew at that time was like really into this like scuzz gutter punk stuff. Like, I was listening to like Choking Victim and Leftover Crack when I was in sixth grade.
That's so sick.
It's pretty sick. And like it was those two bands like listening to MP3s on the family computer of like 500 channels or whatever, or Rock the 40 ounce. And then a CD copy of The Clash's Give 'Em Enough Rope, which is a great record.
Yep.
Probably the only Clash record that I actually give a shit about. maybe because it's only 10 songs and not like 22. But
You took guitar lessons starting in grade 3, and then kind of that fizzled out.
yeah, almost immediately. I think it was about 4 months of like actual guitar lessons.
Yeah. Did you
And then,
ever go back?
yeah, so when I started picking it up again when I was in like 6th grade, so that means my brother's in 8th grade
Yeah.
and he's starting that band. So this is around the time where I was like, oh, okay, I gotta be better than Drew. 6th grade, so 7 or 8 years old or whatever that is. I went back again probably for maybe like another 6 months of lessons, maybe less. Um, but it didn't stick. And then after that, I just never had any formal training until I went to university. The music program at the University of Guelph is like kind of unique. And I'm saying unique. Unique's the generous word. Shitty would be
Oh no.
a word that I wouldn't use to describe the program at the University of Guelph. But there's a couple of aspects of it that were like very concerning.
Yeah.
Um, like the fact that you could get into the performance part of the jazz guitar program. Oh, I guess you had to do an audition to get into the performance part of the program, but you didn't have to do an audition to get into the music program at large. So, like, you could get a degree as someone who's like an ethnomusicologist or something from the University of Guelph, or like start that form of studying. And you didn't have to, you could have never even touched an instrument. But also, this is like where I think the unique presentation of the Guelph music program comes, is because uh, it's a, it seemed to be like a less like performance based music program. Because like if you wanted to go to a jazz performance thing, like you just go to Humber College or the University of Toronto. Like those places churn out some really really fantastic like performers. But a lot of my university training was conceptual in nature and also had to do with like deep active listening. Yeah, and like the responses that were available to me to like help direct improvisation. So like that would in a jazz context, or even so this is the thing, like not maybe the best school for like here's how you can like improvise over a set of chord changes for a tune or whatever. And that information is like readily available. Like you can just like go on the internet and figure out a bunch of that stuff. It's hard, or find a private teacher and figure out that stuff. But what I learned at the university was uh, yeah, maybe just like a little bit more esoteric, but also focused intently on like the musicality of something at all times. It's like it's not this like set of scales or like notes that correspond to this harmony or whatever. It's like just listen to the people that you're playing with. Like, and so often not so often. I've met some people that go through these like jazz factory type programs, and it's like I love that you can rip ass on the instrument, but I can't listen to this. This is like just it's like non-music. It's just a big blur of notes. My uh, professor that I had that did one-on-one lessons with me on a weekly basis, um, where we're guitars in hand, like looking at charts and trying to figure stuff out. He, first lesson that we did, he's like, "You got to tell me about yourself so we can like make the most of this." Uh, and he was present at my audition as well. Um, and I think that he was like it's okay, yeah, there's a curriculum that you need to follow and it's kind of rigid, but like who cares, whatever. So he understood that I like had some proficiency on the instrument, and I had an ear for this like weirder stuff that I was doing from the bands that I was exploring in high school or whatever. Like I showed him those recordings and whatnot. He was like, "Oh yeah, you're doing something strange, eh? A lot of weird time signature stuff, some like notes that are like very colorful in the harmony that's being made or whatever." a lot of stops and starts, all that sort of stuff. So he recognized like an ability that I had on my own. And then when I told him I had like never had a teacher before, he's like, "Oh, okay, this all makes a whole lot of sense." So then our work honestly was like very rudimentary, like understanding very, very like core musical concepts that you should have down before attending a post-secondary like training thing. And I had like some of it down from my high school jazz band, but like not to the point where I should have been going to school in a post-secondary program and paying a lot of money for it. Ken was like extremely patient with me, like getting up to speed with these core concepts. And then I think his teachings really allowed me to highlight my own like whatever my own strengths were at that moment. Like we never worked on those. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, you don't need to necessarily worry about some of the stuff that I need to talk to with other students. Like you need to talk about like all these weird shapes that you found. They have names, they have functions, and they have like some like rules and regulations that you could choose to follow in your like compositional and like performance journey moving forward. So I was able to yeah, Ken was really, really great. Ken Aldcroft, late Ken Aldcroft, was super wonderful in like lifting me up. So it was rigid to me because I had to learn a bunch of new stuff that I didn't understand at all. But like, I think if some other person from like the Humber College of Music or the University of Toronto saw what my curriculum was like, they would just laugh. They'd be like, like you're a baby.
Were you in Benihana?
Yes, I was
Hell
in the
yeah,
band
I knew it.
Benihana. Oh,
I was
you didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
That it might have been me. That might have been Jesse too. But do you remember what the something happening during that show was?
Not a clue.
The guitar player and singer of the band, basically the dude who like it all revolved around because he wrote the songs, Jesse Lee. Remember Jesse Lee?
Yeah, well, I know that name, yes.
Okay, so Jesse Lee, and this is like the second drummer that we had in the band. The first drummer was named Sean something. Can't remember his last name. Heard he turned into like a huge Trump supporter. Kind of wild, but
Nice.
that drummer had like stopped playing in the band. I guess he didn't want to do like the backyard drinking 40s playing punk rock shows thing. And we got John O'Brien, who's a little bit older than both of us at the time, to play drums. And I guess Jesse just like didn't like the way that John played the drums, maybe. And halfway through the set, he just jumped over the drum kit and smashed him in the face.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that happened. And then it was just me with my bass on stage. And I think maybe Andy or someone else in the crowd started chanting, Danny Hanna, Danny Hanna. And then I might have made a joke into the microphone about the band. Maybe Jesse came back and said the band was broken. I don't know. But
Okay. Well, as an outsider, I thought it was fun, but I also thought it was honest.
Yeah, that was a weird one. We played some pretty wild shows, that band. That was a good one. I remember. The first show that no. The first show that I played was with this shitty like metalcore type band where the band was so funny. I played the first two shows. I played them on drums. I thought that's an interesting thing. My first two live performance experiences were on the drums. We played one of those pay to like sell tickets. You know, those like wacky shows.
Yeah.
And you play at the Cathedral in Toronto. We did one of those shows, and then we played a church somewhere in Ajax. So we didn't even get to do a local show.
So you just started out touring.
Yeah. Yeah, touring. Yeah. Um, yeah, we played a couple of these shows that were really, really bad. The band was billed on those shows as The Innocents, which is the worst band name ever. And it was because we had a guitar player in the band who didn't like the band name that the rest of us wanted, which was Bone Storm.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And then so after we played those two shows, we kicked that guitar player out, and then I started playing guitar, and we got a person who could actually play the drums, and changed the band name to Bone Storm.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was a good band. Yeah, and then it was like probably neck and neck with playing with Benny Hanna and Face Party. At the time, it was the music that just sort of like I think naturally came out of Greg and myself. Greg Nathaniel, the I'm sure now legendary Newmarket punk rock drummer.
Yep.
What a monster drummer. Um, but like that was the music that just sort of came out of us both naturally. And like I obviously can't speak for Greg, and I have no interest in trying to do so. But through my own like self reflection about what I was doing in that band, the guitar parts that were coming out of me were complex, kind of weird, and to me, very emotionally satisfying to play. And that's why sometimes we play live. I would bleed a lot because I'd play like really, really hard because it was like emotionally satisfying for me to do this kind of music. Um, what's the word that people use? Cathartic. It was cathartic. Um, and so I'm 33 this year, and like that catharsis in music doesn't really happen much anymore. And this stuff isn't coming from out of nowhere, right? Like it's coming from a place of like when I was younger, why was I like making this like very strange like music that was like really cathartic and like emotionally satisfying for me to make? And the sort of like thing that I've been thinking about in my own head for a bit has been I think I was making that music and it was complicated and I also didn't have any lyrics, right? So I was expressing all of these emotions that I was unable to express using language because I just didn't know that I needed to express it. Uh, so yeah, I've realized that like that early music and the music that I made basically up until like I ended a band effectively at the end of last year was all like the music was being created from that lens, like trying to untangle this like shitty childhood that I had, this like kind of neglectful one. And for me, like, so talking about playing with that band in high school, upon a lot of reflection later in my life, is yeah, it's a direct sort of like response to my upbringing. But I also like learned so much playing with Greg of like experimenting with these like weird time signatures and like we're not calling it weird harmonies and melodies that like maybe we're not like calling them by the names that they have, like, oh, we're going like up a semitone playing flat twos, playing flat five chords or whatever. Oh, this is like a Lydian scale, not major. Like we weren't discussing any of it like that. We're just like when I hit a wrong note, sometimes Greg would be like, yeah, and I was like, yeah, that's the one. Okay, sounds good.
That's awesome.
And then yeah, we would just like bounce ideas back and forth like a true collaboration would happen. You just bounce them. Yeah, but it's nice to learn how to play with other people and to learn how to express yourself. That's really
Mhm.
what it was. It was a form of like very intense self-expression, which was necessary for me at the time. It's hard to get motivated to do this type of music that for so long, like the artistic sort of like catalyst for it was this thing that I didn't know. And like now that I'm kind of aware of what this artistic catalyst for making that type of music is, it's the reason why I know it is because I have the language to talk about this stuff now. Talk about like early childhood trauma and like neglectful parents and people being narcissists or whatever, like I have the ability to talk about it. And it's so much more effective dealing with your emotions through something direct like language than something indirect like making music. So I'm more mentally like on it and aware and acute about these things than I ever have been. But it kind of like took away this like this bubbling underground, like, oh, I got to get this out because I don't know what it is, and if I don't do it, I kind of go crazy. Like that doesn't happen anymore
That's
because
great.
I've matured a little bit and
Yeah,
my mental health is kind of stabilized
that's
because of it.
awesome.
Yeah, it's nice. So I've been trying to work hard on playing some like the stuff that I think I should have been doing when I was in university, like really getting to know how to play through jazz standards and like working with like a trio. I've been trying to do some of that lately. Mostly because it takes all of my brain power. It's like holy shit, running 32 bars of like of like a rhythm changes form is like, man, I'm bad at it. Oh, I shouldn't be bad at it after playing and teaching for this long. So I'm really trying to bone up those personal skills lately. Yeah.
You opened the studio, I think, in 2022, right?
Yeah. 2022. September of 2022, I was teaching in there onwards from there.
So was this an idea you had prior to the pandemic, or was it something that you thought of during?
During. So I had been teaching before the pandemic, and I was teaching at a place in town called the Jam School. And it's just like a spot where you go and do lessons. They have a wall that you can pick guitars and a couple drums and basses off of or whatever. Small retail space, mostly a place for lessons. Really heavy on the idea of getting kids into bands and getting those bands out on stage as quickly as possible, which for them and their business seems to work wonders. For kids' development and self-esteem and all of the stuff that I was able to think about as a teacher, not necessarily worried about their business, I didn't necessarily see the immediate benefits to it. For some students, absolutely, they want to get out, they want to play, they want to be loud and be on stage as quickly as possible. But for most of my students that I had, that didn't really seem like the case. So that was always like a little bit of a tension that I had with working there, and I'm sure that they are aware of it as a business. Um, but yeah, you make more money and you get really great photo opportunities if kids are playing in bands once a week and are coupled that with their private lessons, and they're also getting on stage once a month or once every 2 months or something. So I was doing that for a while. Then the pandemic hit, and all of that in-person lesson stuff and playing gigs with those kids stopped as well. And we had to adopt this online lessons over Skype and using, I forget what the software is called, but it was essentially a DAW that exists in your web browser that other people can have access to, and all of the stuff is stored in the cloud. So it's bad for like real time work, but great for sketching simple ideas and like sharing them with your bandmates, which is what we were doing. But we were also trying to create videos for these bands. So like once a month there would be a show, and everyone's videos that they'd been working on uh, would we present them. Anyways, through this process, a lot of students left. A lot of students dropped out of the program and were sort of uninterested in the digital version of music lessons, which is completely understandable. That being said, I didn't lose a lot of students. I think I lost one at the beginning of COVID. And I got called from somebody in that organization to ask like what it was that I was doing, that I like wasn't like losing students. And I just put that in my head. I was like, okay, that's a bargaining chip. Like, because at that time, like my entire worldview was sort of shifting, right? Like, I'm seeing the like absolute horrendous response from the provincial and federal government. Uh, you know, pretty like clearly those institutions were laying down the idea that like this is about keeping the money moving to the people that always have money moving towards them. That's what the goal is here. But then they sort of like made that happen. Like no rent protections for people that like lost their jobs or whatever. They got here's 2 grand a month from the CERB. Great.
For 5 months.
For 5 months, and like also you pay your rent with this. Pay your rent with it. That's all that you did. So you just like propped up this already like really kind of absurd system that we live in, and it just like made that so clear as day. And so this happened, and getting told by someone in the organization that like I'm not losing students at the same rate that other people are. Like, what are you doing right? Can you like maybe distill some of this information down to some of the other teachers? And I was like, that's a pretty big ask. Um, and you know what? Like, yeah, I'll do that. It's pretty simple though. It's like just treating people with respect. That's like, I don't think I do anything special as a teacher other than like meet any of my students like kind of on their level and just treat them as anyone would like to be treated, like with respect and dignity. And I think the thing about like shuffling people out on stage before they're ready to do it, that like denies that for a lot of people. And they're like, now they're like going through these lessons and they don't even get a chance to get up on stage. The thing that they were already sketched out about doing, it's like, there's no point in me doing this. When really the point of these things is to have like an ongoing back and forth sort of like mentorship with someone that knows a little bit more about music than you do, and to be treated with respect through that process, not to be treated like someone that's like, all right, well, we got your credit card information. We're going to get you up on stage. We're going to work this all out. Like, it was just very transparent that that seemed to be the case. I'm sorry, I feel like really disparaging my prior place of employment, but I'm
They
not
won't
trying.
see this, whatever.
Yeah, they probably won't. So I stopped, or yeah, I think I gave them like 4 months notice, and I was like, listen, I'm leaving at the beginning of next September. Um, so find a new teacher, and I'm gonna start teaching in my basement. And I've told two of my students that I'm leaving, and they were like, "You can't do that. You can't tell anybody that you're leaving." And I was like, "Okay, fine, I won't." I didn't tell any of my students that I was leaving except for those two that I had told previous. But when they found out that I was leaving, a bunch of them jumped ship and came with me. They were like,
Yeah.
well, wherever you go, we're going to go." And for a year, it was in the basement of a house that I lived in where there was 6 of us living there. Yeah. So, like, I had all of these roommates who were very, very, very kind to me. And this is the thing about building community, right? Like, these people that were, my roommates, and I see them every single day. They were incredibly supportive of me making this transition from working with these other people and paying more than half of what the value of the labor is to this like company, to working for myself and giving my students a discount, and just like being able to direct my own financial security. But it became very clear after 4 or 5 months of me doing that, teaching out of that basement, that this is not something that I can grow, and I want to grow it because I like teaching. Like I said, I think I'm good at it, and that's been validated by at least a couple other people in my life. Um, so I was like, it would be dumb for me not to try and grow this, and I just started looking for commercial spaces in Guelph, and eventually I found one where the price was right. And by right, I mean as cheap as possible, and there was like lots of space, and it was in a basement too, which was good for me. Not great for a lot of other people, but great for music making. Um, And yeah, so I wasn't financially ready to take the jump into doing that, but I did it anyways because I was like, wherever the money's going to come from, like I'll figure it out because I can't keep running on this treadmill of like working some day job that I don't give a shit about and like playing in bands and not making any money doing that and like teaching being a thing where I could make money if I had enough students, but like I'm never going to have enough students. Turns out when you actually pay yourself the value of the wage that teaching is, and you can give your students a discount, like you don't have to have tons of students to make. I gave myself a 100% raise. I gave myself a, oh, I'm making $21 an hour. Let's call it 40, you know? And then that's like, oh, my students were paying 56 an hour. Let's call it 40. Like everybody wins when I cut out the person that's just like paying themselves 20 something dollars an hour or more to do administrative work and to like, or, oh, I got to organize the rental of a venue and like run tech at this venue for this show. It's like, I could do all that. I've been doing it since I was a kid, doing it poorly, but like, was could still do it. And but now I'm not doing it that sort of stuff poorly anymore. Like I'm
Yeah, but that also just comes with years of experience, right?
comes with a lot of bad shows.
Yeah.
a lot of a lot of a lot of boners on my end.
Some of which were in my Oakville basement.
most, most certainly were.
Oh hell yeah.
Uh, so I got this like commercial space, and then fun thing about commercial spaces is that your you can do whatever you want in a commercial space. You don't have the same protections as you would in a residential space, but like yeah, like I just like saw this big like 1,500 square foot space, and I just started like going on YouTube and asking my friends who knew how to like frame walls and put up doors and like do construction. Like, okay, what do I need to do? I need to make 3 rooms in this space. One for me for teaching, one for me for sleeping for a couple of months because it was so expensive that I was ostensibly homeless for a moment. Uh, and then another room that's just going to be there. And then when I make enough money to not live here, I have these 2 extra rooms, and I don't know what I can do with those 2 extra rooms now. The goal at the beginning of it was to have other teachers in there and do this like, okay, so the rental of the space is X amount of dollars. Instead of me taking a portion of like each of your students' money comes to me and then I pay you a wage. You charge whatever you want. I don't give a shit what it is. The rental of this room to facilitate it is like $200 a month. So any money that you make over $200 is like you're in the free and clear and making a bunch of money. Which to me, being a person that just dropped about almost 10 grand into the construction and facilitation of this idea, if someone had come to me and said like $200 a month, you can rent a room here, it's fully furnished, it has everything available that you need to start teaching, I would have jumped at the opportunity. It would have been the perfect thing for me. So because it would have been the perfect thing for me, my idea was to give that to somebody else, and that would just like help with the rent of the building. But I didn't really have enough time to fully flesh out that idea because by the time I built those rooms, people were like knocking at my door, being like, "I need a artist space. Like I have a sculpture studio, and I need a place to put like an enormous amount of stuff and do some work." Or we're doing like a Dungeons and Dragons type board game, and we're doing a podcast with it. We need a room to store all of our stuff and like make YouTube content in. And I was like, what? I was like, I don't know where these people are coming from, but like I built those rooms and then those people rented them out. And it helps with the not the absurd cost of rent of that commercial unit, but like it's still expensive. But so the key thing that's missing there is that I don't know, maybe these people the artists that have rented from me and the people making like content or whatever have used that space to make them money. But I was trying to do something specific with like music teachers because the thing that I was doing at that music school is the default mode of money making for like a local music teacher. You go to a place, they don't hire you as an employee, they hire you as a private contractor. You have to do all your like you have to pay CPP and EI off of those paychecks. Like you have to squirrel that away and save it for a rainy day. Or not a rainy day, taxes. You have to save it for your taxes when you do your
The
taxes.
rainiest of
The
days.
rainiest of days. Um, I was like really hoping that it could be like, no, you're in here doing appointments, and every appointment that you do, like if you have to pay $200 a month and you're teaching at a rate of $50 an hour, right? You have to teach 4 hour-long lessons in a month to just afford that space, and anything that you do on top of that is money in your pocket. It's not super hard to find 4 hour students or 8 half-hour students. Um, yeah, so I was hoping that people would be really willing to like sort of make that jump from other studios in town. Um, but they weren't, and that's perfectly fine because there's something obviously something to be said about job security, and like you don't have to do any legwork to like find new students because like the search engine optimization is like already there for like Along and McQuaid or the music store that's downtown Guelph called Guelph Music, who are absolutely wonderful, by the way. They're the top tier music folk in Guelph. Like parents just know that these places are safe and accessible and they can go there.
But
And
it's also like your studio is fairly new. It's not even 2 years old, right? There's always time to be able
yeah,
to grow and include another teacher.
yeah, I think that's the next step. If someone else were to come on board and like join me for teaching in that space, that would be a really. I think that would help me think that the space is a little bit more on track than it is. But also, one thing that I've really learned from opening up this business and finding all this stuff is that my intentions about like where I want the business to go is maybe not they might not be correct, and I have to remain consistently like open to like what the world presents me as an opportunity to be able to continue on this way. Because the last thing I want to do is start going back and working for like a wage for somebody else. One thing from being a business owner that I've sort of gleaned, and I got this from being an employee in a lot of places too, but you always like as an employee somewhere, you don't get too invested in the success or failure of the company that you're working for. You're just sort of like, higher ups, they got something going on.
Yeah,
I
they'll
don't I
figure it
don't
out.
I don't want to know about it. Like now that I have this thing that I own, it's incredible to see what kind of like waste exists in like small businesses, especially in downtown Guelph. Like, and the waste is it's pretty. It could so easily be changed. Like, it's based on lack of communication or an unwillingness to communicate with your staff, and then the other thing is just like it's just greed. Like a big part of the waste is like, oh, I didn't really want to do anything this month, but I still have like all of my bills and my mortgage to pay, and I got a car payment that I need to pay for, and I got a kid. And it's like, great, the owner of this bar downtown didn't do anything and took, for the month, 10 grand, 15 grand, whatever. People talk about like sweat equity, that like, oh, I put so much work and effort into this thing. Like, I deserve to get paid back for what it is that I do. And like part of me like I'm kind of torn on this because it's just like, yeah, you put in a lot of work, but like, one, I don't know what work you put in, so like, don't fucking use that argument on me.
There's
Like,
that, but also like, have you been paid back for that work already?
exactly. Like, are you going to get paid back in perpetuity forever because you put in 15 grand like in 1982 when you bought the bar for a fucking song? Like, now everyone's like trying to do something, and like to do anything it costs like 200 grand minimum. Like I put in my work, and it's like, nah, you inherited a building from your grandfather, you jackass. Like, that's not obviously not always the case, but yeah, I'm a little skeptical sometimes. Um, as like the term community organizer gets like used by in like an official capacity for, especially for like municipal governments. Like, we have this thing in Guelph called the Downtown Guelph Business Association, and they put on these. They've been doing this like afternoon weekend concerts. They'll do one on Saturday and one on Sunday. And this place that I used to work has been putting on some of those events, and I get to like do sound for them. I get to tech those events, and it's great because I get a little bit of a paycheck from the government for doing work that I generally like to do. Um, but yeah, I'm skeptical of like the word community being used in that sense, and the word community that we're using when we're talking about when you and I are talking about it. I'm not entirely sure if those things are equated. Like, because like having something nice to do on the in the middle of the day on an afternoon that's like has like a super low barrier of entry financially, like that's really really good.
Yeah.
But it's the the connections that you make and the people that you meet at those events that hopefully get like bonded a little bit tighter, and like they become a little bit stronger. That's really the important thing. It's not just an event that is presented by a community organizer, because I've never seen that community organizer who works for the Downtown Guelph Business Association ever before in my entire life. And I've been someone who's been actively putting on like community minded events for in Guelph probably up over a decade now, you know, in some capacity or another. Um, so I just like don't know that person. And I find that that's weird, and it's also it uses the same language that I would use to describe the thing that I'm trying to do.
What are
I think
they providing?
money, they have funding, right? They have a little like a small amount of funding. And yeah, I think it's correct in that like yeah, seeds could be planted, but like then that the people that I work with called this they're called the Satellite Collective, which is some people that they work at the Planet Bean coffee shop, downtown Guelph. Somebody from those events usually grabs the microphone and talks about like something during the these like City of Guelph funded concerts that get put on. And I think that actually is a super important part of the process. And I'm not entirely sure if the people that I work with in the Satellite Collective are on the same wavelength as me there. It's like, this is the part where you get to do like propaganda. This is the part where you get to be like, yes, we get a little bit of money from the city, but like really it's the people that we meet and the friendships that we make and the ability to like rely on one another as members of a community. That's really the important thing here. And then this event is one instance. I went and spoke at city council yesterday because I guess being like a politically minded and activated citizen in your community is maybe a good thing. Uh, so there was a building in downtown Guelph. The address was 90 Carden Street, and it was right by the bus station. And it was sketchy. There was a lot of drug use. There was a lot of drug dealing. There was a lot of like just like people who are experiencing like active addiction or like extreme low poverty or low income and poverty, um, maybe some mental health issues. Like a lot of people were rooming there or living with people that were rooming there. Rents were cheap, whatever. Another place downtown has been bought by some college, not Sheridan College. That's where you went.
Yeah.
Conestoga College has bought a building downtown and is going to build a campus uh, downtown Guelph, which is kind of crazy because it's small downtown Guelph. But this building, 90 Carden Street, has been purchased by someone, and they purchased it, and then they started doing all of these like, we're going to pay you some money if you leave. And if you can imagine someone who's like in active addiction getting a check for $800 waved in front of their face is like,
Yeah.
hey. Anyways, so the building is now empty and it's being like gutted. And all of those people that were having, I'll say like, we're pretty close to homelessness have been pushed into homelessness. And so pretty shortly after that building got like everyone got evicted and they got their checks or whatever, there was like a tent city that started building in the main square in downtown Guelph. And yesterday there was a city council meeting in at City Hall where, so I guess 12 days ago now, city council, the members of city council unanimously voted to give city staffers 11 days to draft a bylaw regarding the use of public space. And a lot of the stuff that was in this bylaw was pretty directly, like you could interpret it as like, wow, all these like tents that have popped up in the downtown core have to not be there. They got to go somewhere else. It's not where they go in the bill is not defined, but where they can't go is clearly defined. And it's a lot of places. And what they can't do when they get to those places that they can go is also pretty defined. And it's like you can't use any of the, like, if there's public electrical outlets, can't use them. Public amenities like toilets, can't use them. Water fountains, can't use them. So it's like these people that have decided to set up camp right in the middle of downtown because it's right beside the Royal City Mission, which is a big church, and they do a lot of poverty relief. And it's also kitty corner to this place that used to be called the Bench, and now it's called the Side Door because the police kicked them out of being able to do this work at the Bench. They daily set up like a table and hand out food and water and essentials to these people that are experiencing homelessness. Both of these places, like the tent city that's downtown, is like right in between both of these things. It's like within a 2-minute walk of both of these amenities that exist for these people. There's been some shelter space that has been provided by the city of Guelph, but it's pretty far away from the downtown core, which is where all the amenities exist that are not provided by the city. So it's like the city's providing them a space to stay that's outside of like the main like commerce area of Guelph. And the people that are experiencing that homelessness have, you know, the old saying, beggars can't be choosers. Well, they chose to not take the amenities that are available to them through the city because it's like totally inadequate. So there's not enough like adequate shelter beds available for these people. And the beds that are available, like I don't even believe the city council's like, well, there's some people just don't take the beds. It's like they're full anyways. They get taken. Like there's a couple people that have decided to just like, you know what, my life is like makes more sense for me to be here downtown than to like walk 4 hours round trip to go get a meal, be late for the meal. It's just like whatever. So yeah, the city council gave city staffers 11 days to draft a bylaw regarding the use of public space. As you can imagine, 11 days to draft a bylaw that essentially dictates what these people can and cannot do is not enough time to adequately consult any of the people that are living down there or any of the people that work in any of the places that are providing some sort of like extreme poverty relief. They didn't consult anybody. They didn't consult a single person. They said that in the presentation yesterday at City Hall. They were like, "Yeah, you gave us 11 days, and we came back with this bylaw." So there was like, I don't know, probably 30 people that got up and delegated yesterday after they did their little presentation, their little fucking song and dance about like why we should put this bill through. And there's a couple different people. One person was a lawyer and was like, just FYI, like this is like against the Canadian Charter of Rights and like two different sectors of it. And like the city of Kingston is already going through like a legal proceeding around the exact same thing. So like as like a free legal clinic that exists in Guelph to provide services to people that are experiencing poverty, if one of our clients decides to like take you to task on this, like we'll go all the way with it. And so yeah, it was just it was nice to see some people who are much smarter than I am like put it all together and be like, this is unconstitutional. Fuck you guys. This is embarrassing as like a political move. And I like everyone's very nice in City Hall. Everyone has like the mayor's word that he used for the day, a certain decorum. Uh, and it was nice for me to get up and just tell him that he sucks.
That's awesome.
Oh, so my unique perspective that I brought to the table was because there was like a bunch of people that were just from a humanitarian perspective. They were like, this is like the way that you're treating these people is wrong, and everyone should be treated with dignity and respect. And we should have other things that are like adequate support systems in place before we put a bylaw like this into use. Yeah, we're asking them to act materially in a morally like not reprehensible way. Like do something that isn't going to make everyone feel sick to their stomachs, please.
Yeah.
um, and so a lot of people were saying stuff like that, and so I didn't really feel the need to like echo the same sentiment. And there was a couple business owners there that were downtown that were I guess they wanted to talk about how their businesses were doing poorly and how that is squarely because of these homeless people that have set up camp downtown and their rampant drug use and they're assaulting. And it's like, one, I kind of, first of all, being a business owner downtown, my business is doing fine. like like that was the first thing that I said to the council and to the auditorium there. I was like, it's weird that this is a unique perspective, but like I just don't like my finances and my business is doing okay. I don't know what you guys are talking about. No one's taking a dump on my doorstep or whatever. So they went into deliberation after the council session ended, and they voted 10-3 to what's the word, to push decisions on this bylaw back until the legal hearings in Kingston are finished. Yeah, if the city of Kingston beats the Charter of Canadian Rights and Freedoms or whatever, then we'll go ahead and do it too in Guelph. Yeah, but they could have, that's a great outcome from yesterday because
Absolutely.
the vote was going to be on the 27th to implement the bill on the 1st of March. So this buys the people that are living downtown, just a little bit more time.
Yeah, some room to breathe.
A little bit of room to breathe, which is harder and harder to come by for those folk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So felt nice to just like put my hands in the municipal politics gumbo for a second, but annoying that like you have to do it. Like you have to apparently hold these people to account at every chance that you can get, or they'll try and fucking like take 11 days to do something like this.
Yeah. What are you talking about? They got paid $800.
It was their choice. They did it a free.
Yeah. Politics is a mess.
It certainly is. Yeah. What a nightmare. I teach in an hour and 10, and I still got my pajamas on, and I'm still wearing slides and no socks. So
Nice.
I do gotta call it quits though now
Yeah, no problem.
though.
Yeah, thanks for your time. That was great.
Thanks for asking me, Scott. Every time we get to hang out and do anything, whether it's in like a just chilling or like a creative context, like I always feel great about it.
Amazing.
So
Yeah, I hope that more projects come our way.
yeah, you got any songs in the bank or what?
Got a few I'm working on. 3.
Yeah, you come down.
Yeah.
Come down, fart it out.
Yeah. Fart it out.
Yeah, fart it out. Just whenever you want, hit me up. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Right.
All right. I'll see you later.
Bye, Scott. Bye.